is Councilor. I am starting this Urban Affairs Committee meeting. I am echoing. Is it me?
Something's wrong with the sound. It's echoing.
I can hear myself echoing, so I'm going to continue. All right, today is February 18th. This is the last of a slew of council committee meetings, so we're a little behind schedule. I apologize for that. This meeting is being held virtually with councilors attending in person and remotely. It is being shown on WMCT-TV, and we also have people on the Teams meeting. For the Attorney General's office, I'm going to be doing a roll call and announcing who is here that is not a committee member. So for committee members, Councilor Landers.
Present.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette is remote.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin is present.
Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner is present remote.
And I am Councilor Roby. I'm also attending remotely. I believe we also have at this meeting Councilor Ossing.
Present in chamber.
Councilor Irish.
Present in chamber.
Councilor Dumas.
Councilor Dumas present in chamber.
Councilor Oram. All right, Councilor Oram had been at all the other meetings. I guess he's not on with us. Councilor Tenera. He is also gone. And Councilor Perlman.
Councilor Perlman is here as well.
Thank you. Before I start, I would like to give a special thank you to the city clerk's office, to IT, and to the cable station. I know that there was a fear because of the snowstorm this meeting would have to be canceled, and they had agreed regardless they were going to carry on. So I thank them for their support in making sure this meeting could happen tonight. All the meetings could happen tonight. We do have 3 items on our agenda. I'm going to take them a little bit out of order. And the first one I'm going to take up will be the application for a special permit by attorney Brian Falk on behalf of Speedy Auto Repair Incorporated to relocate an existing body shop from 315 Maple Street to 412, 418 Maple Street in the commercial automotive district with land area less than 1 acre. In addition, the property contains a pre-existing non-conforming structure on the site, and therefore the change of use requires a special permit. That's order number 21-100-8162. I believe we have with us Attorney Falk, who is here for the petitioner. I don't know who else. If anyone is here, I will let Attorney Falk, I believe he wants to do his little presentation, and then we have several communications that I want to reference. So Attorney Falk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, for the record, Brian Falk from Myrica O'Connell here on behalf of the applicant, Speedy Auto Repair, Inc. And joining us remotely is our owner, Junior Oliveira, and our broker, Randy Carpenter. Just to summarize, we're seeking a special permit to relocate Speedy Auto Repair's existing operation from 315 Maple Street to 412, 418 Maple Street. We had our public hearing on January 25th, and prior to that, we met with the site plan committee to solicit comments. I know the council received some comments from site plan before our hearing, and also recently, I think today also. We had submitted a draft special permit decision with conditions for the council's review. At the hearing and at our site plan meeting, we received comments regarding landscaping improvements and fencing at the property. Mr. Clerk, if we could just advance 1 or 2 slides, I just want to pull one up. That's good right there. Oh, perfect, thank you. So we recognize this is a bit of a gateway property. It's at the corner of Maple and Walker, and it is relatively prominent in the commercial automotive district. And we're proposing taking that corner there, which is currently paved and with a curb cut, and turning that into landscaping and doing away with one of the curb cuts. We think that'll improve the property quite a bit. You'll see in the draft decision, we've also proposed adding fencing to screen the rear interior areas of the property, parking area where there may be cars parked that are in states of being worked on. So that from the public ways, the view of the property would be improved substantially. I know Priscilla Ryder, Conservation Officer, had sent in some additional edits to the draft conditions that we put together. I just wanted to let you know we're okay with all of those changes to the conditions. So if we're going to work through that tonight, we've reviewed them and we're okay with those conditions. So with that, happy to hear additional questions and comments from the committee. And if you want to go through the draft decision, we're certainly happy to do that tonight as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Falk. So the City Council, members on the Urban Affairs Committee, and the rest of the council, I believe, has received both the draft conditions and then all the communications. We received a email from Priscilla Ryder dated January 28th, where she kind of went over some of the things that were reviewed in site plan. She talked about landscaping, building aesthetics, the curb cut and sewer connections and stormwater improvements. After that, and after some discussion with a couple of people, I emailed her back, where she then sent the response with some recommended amendments to the draft decision. I believe all of the city councilors have received a copy of that. We also received communication from the chief of police. I believe everybody has that also. I will just quickly read his. Good afternoon, Councilor Roby. In speaking with Priscilla Ryder this afternoon about the special permit application, we discussed the parking situation on the property as well as surrounding streets. She did forward to me her comments from the site plan review with regards to the parking. Within the last year, Traffic Commission has worked with councilors and residents of River Street in an effort to eliminate, maximize the significant on-street parking which has been occurring on that street. Several of the nearby auto dealerships and repair facilities were parking vehicles at the edge of their property on the streets and in neighboring lots, which impeded traffic flow, restricted access for some neighbors to their own property, and created the potential that emergency vehicles could have difficulty utilizing the roadway. I know that Priscilla's comments do address this issue with respect to the potential parking vehicles at 412 I believe it's 18 Maple Street. I just wanted to reinforce its importance as this property is just around the corner from the River Street location. I would suggest that language within the special permit to address no off-site and no on-street parking could help minimize the potential for any future uses. So I don't believe, Attorney Falk, you got that communication, so that may be an additional piece that's discussed tonight for a possible further change to the draft. So keep that in mind. I would like to begin with the draft decision, unless there are questions before we start that anybody might have that are just general questions. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Councilor Roby. I do have a couple of questions about it. First is, this is in Ward 2, so I'm taking extra attention for this. I think the issue of landscaping in the corner makes a lot of sense. Also, right now, the way the layout of the property is, there's no connection between the Wilson Street entrance and the Maple Street entrance. There's a fencing that does not allow traffic to flow between those two streets. However this is done going forward, I'd like to see that maintained. So I don't want to see basically a cut through from Maple Street to Wilson Street. I think it's important to keep those two separate. The other is there is some storage facility buildings that are on the property. And it was said in the public hearing that your intent is to keep them. Is that basically going to be an ongoing business?
So through you, Madam Chair, the storage units that are there on site, they are coming with the property. Some of them have existing users. That's part of our agreement with the current owner is to take that on. And it is our intention to leave those in place. Although with the additional landscaping and screening, I think it will help quite a bit in terms of minimizing any visual impacts from the storage facility.
Okay, okay. Um, The, I think it's important that the on-site parking is put as a condition. So I'd like to see that when we get into the conditions. The other is, I was going to bring this up either in this one or the murals, but I honestly think the corner of that building would actually be a good opportunity to place a mural. Something that would, because it is a marquee location for the city. We all pretty much agree to that. And nobody liked the LED display that they had there for God knows how long, right? But let's put something there that is appealing and really is eye-catching. I know we're going to talk about this with Samantha's project, but when you go downtown, head towards downtown Maynard, there's a building on the right-hand side that has this beautiful digital mosaic that ends up with a hummingbird, but it's just unexpected, but it's for a printing shop, so it makes sense. I think that having something like that for this building, I think would make a lot of sense too. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thanks to you, Councilor Doucette. This is a privately owned building, so that would have to be taken into consideration as we get to the discussion later on murals. But I do believe, Mr. Kerrigan, you have a map that was sent by Priscilla Ryder that shows her vision of what this site would look like. Can you put that up on the screen, please? I believe it does show a solid fence that would block the traffic from going from Walker and going all the way through and coming back out onto Maple Street. I believe her intention is to have that fence be what is the screening of the cars that are at the site for work to be done. So hopefully that answers your question and we can get that clarified, or they will clarify that site plan. So thank you, Mr. Kerrigan, for showing that. Anybody else with specifics before we get into the details?
Madam Chair, Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
Right. I appreciate Priscilla's most recent drawing there, because that's what I was looking for. But I was hoping it would come from the people that are designing it. The first drawing they showed us, Madam Chair, was kind of nice. It showed the corner of Walker and Maple Street, even with a few trees there and a few flowers. I'm not sure if flowers belong in an auto body shop. But I guess what I'd like to see, Brian, is an improved drawing of the whole site. Let Priscilla's be a jumping off point. And as we have in most projects, we see what the complete site is going to look like. Comparable to what, you did on the Walker and Maple Street side. I'm a little disappointed that those storage containers would still be there, but I think you said that there's contracts or commitments that some people are leasing those.
That's right.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate in a way, because I would think that if they were gone, it would give this auto body shop more, more square footage, because it's not an exceptionally big lot. And I don't know how big their business is going to be, but you start crowding things in and wrecks and a tow truck and that type of stuff. So I would like to see a rendering of what the whole site would look like. Maybe from the Maple Street front side, Walker and Maple, just as important, the back, because I think the push is, I think that the police, Chief Georgie gave us the idea. River Street has to be improved. That's unbelievable that we allow even a back street like that to exist. It's obvious. Most of those, companies down there, they just let their help and they let their customers, they just pull cars in, and they're all different angles. I can remember when River Street had one one garage, Pleasant Street Garage, that did Volkswagens, and that was it. And the reason I remember it so well, the guy that sold that land, he used to have gardens there, you know? But I think this is our chance again to improve that corner site, you know, because it is kind of like the entrance to the city, all right? And at the same time, let's start improving, you know, even River Street, a back street. So, Brian, you think we could have the next meeting, a complete rendering, you know, expand upon and have it professionally done what Priscilla did?
We certainly plan to do that as part of site plan review. We didn't intend to do much more in the way of plan work with the special permit. But again, we agree with what Priscilla has suggested. This is a great jumping off point from when we work with the site plan committee. All those green spaces that she's shown here, we're certainly going to incorporate within the landscaping plans that will be required to submit as part of the site plan, the application. And just to note, as you mentioned, the River Street location, you're right. This is right around the corner. It abuts us. You know, our property is going to be a significant improvement over current conditions, and certainly a significant improvement compared to essentially an identical operation right next door. So, you know, I think again we're suggesting significant improvements to the site. It's going to make it look a whole lot better, and we're looking forward to working with the site plan committee, you know, on further details with our landscaping plan. But Priscilla's rendering here is exactly what we have in mind and what we'll be working with site plan on.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Falcon. And yes, Councilor Landers, a typical special permit, we probably would have a whole lot more. This is an existing building, and so they went to site plan for some preliminary discussion. They need the special permit, and then they'll go back to site plan. I think our goal is to make sure that we have in the conditions the things that we want to make sure site plan covers. So we can make sure that the landscaping is to our specifications, maybe not our specifications, but up to our standards. And we can make sure that we give them language to then do their work and make sure that not only the requirements of the code, but also extra things that we want, because as has been mentioned, this is part of the gateway to the city. I think specific to River Street, the Traffic Commission has done some changes to the code so that they changed the ability to park on River Street, and I believe has resolved that issue. So we can certainly make sure that there's a condition that this site will not be able to have off-site or on-street parking. So I do have that as one of my notes. So is there anybody else? And before we get into the meat of this? Nope. Okay, so I'm going to start with page 1, where I'm just going to remind everybody in the finding of facts number 3, it states as the last sentence that this is as shown on the plans referenced in paragraph 5 below. The use consists of a building containing the auto repair operation, accessory parking, accessory storage buildings, and landscaped areas. And in a email that I received today from the building commissioner, I know he's not able to be at this meeting, he's out on sick leave, but he did comment that if the storage units are not part of the auto repair site, that they would be outside and additional parking may be required. So I think, as this is probably not going to get finalized tonight, if there are any further information that we need from the building department or the building commissioner specific to those storage units, I'm sure he will let us know. I'm going to go to page 2, where it does talk about the fact that we received the plan entitled Existing Condition of Land in Marlborough, Massachusetts, which I believe some of it was shown on the PowerPoint at the public hearing, but it is actually documented as the plan from Hancock Associates. And it will be part of attachment A The question is, do we want more than that? And I think that Councilor Landert had asked for a increased site plan. I don't know that that's really necessary. I think the existing conditions, but I'll open that up for discussion again.
Councilor Roby, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think having also in attachment A, the Priscilla Ryder's document, the picture that she did, I think also including that as part of attachment A probably would make a lot of sense. So at least that way it becomes part of the baseline to go against going forward.
Attorney Falk, would you be willing to rewrite paragraph 5 or number 5 so that it includes that draft from Priscilla Ryder?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. All right, then the rest of this is just information about the site and the fact that we had the public hearing, that no member spoke at the public hearing. On page 3, we begin the findings of facts and the actual conditions. So number 1 is the typical construction in accordance with applicable laws. Number 2 is site plan review, and I'm going to make a recommendation to include.
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette, sorry.
Yeah, okay, it says construction in accordance to applicable law. This is a restoration project. Is that still considered construction, or is there a more appropriate term? The building's built is kind of where I'm going with this.
Attorney Falk, maybe you are better. I understand there may be some facade changes to the building.
There may be, and there'll be interior work as well that will be construction that requires a building permit. So I think it's okay as drafted.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, so number 2 is site plan review. And as I was starting to say, I have a proposed amendment to this. It currently reads, the issuance of the special permit is further subject to detailed site plan review by the Site Plan Review Committee. I'm going to recommend that we insert there, including architectural improvements of the building and the use of the accessory storage buildings. Do I need to repeat that? Because I don't think this is any language that anybody currently has. Although it is sort of taking comments from both Priscilla and a couple of other people. I can make sure that you get a copy of it, Attorney Fox, so that you have it to add in, or do you want me to repeat it again?
I've got notes on it. I get it. Thank you.
Okay. So then it just continues in accordance with the City of Marlborough Site Plan Review Ordinance prior to the issuance of the building permit. Any changes as required during the process of site plan review shall be further conditions attached to the building permit, and no occupancy permit shall be issued until the applicant has complied with all the conditions. Subsequent site plan review shall be consistent with the conditions of the special permit, and the site plan submitted, reviewed, and approved by the City Council as a special permit granting authority. Number 3 is the modification of the plans. It just talks about notwithstanding conditions 1 and 2, the City Council or the site plan review may approve engineering changes to the plans. I think that is pretty standard language too. I don't know what engineering plans might get changed, but there could be some structural things within the building that might have to happen. All right, number 4 is incorporation of submission. So it just talks about all the plans are part of the application. Number 5 is the stormwater and erosion control management that talks about having a superintendent on board. As noted, this was okay as written by Priscilla Ryder. Number 6 is lighting. Exterior lighting shall be downward facing and shielded. Number 7 is signs. And it currently reads, signage at the site shall comply with the city's sign ordinance. After discussion with a couple of people, I would like to make an amendment to this one also, where it reads, signage at the site shall be flat wall signs and comply with the city's sign ordinance under 526-9 non-residence district. So I know that, I believe that the preliminary site plan, there was discussion on the signs, but nothing was confirmed and we don't have the specificity. I believe it was discussed that it would be flat wall signs. I'm suggesting to the committee and to the full council, if this is approved, that we make it be flat wall signs and not have a freestanding sign. There is language within the 526-9 that because they're a corner lot, they would be able to have a flat wall sign on both Walker and Maple.
I'm fine with that.
Attorney Falk, you have that language, and is that an issue do you think, for your client?
I have that language and I'm texting my client right now.
Okay, I will continue on. Number 8 is indoor repairs. That just talks about auto repairs taking place indoors only and the temporary storage of vehicles undergoing repairs at the site. The applicant shall use and maintain in good working order any indoor paint spray booth or similar technology. I don't know if this is a good place to put it, but I think this might be a appropriate place to insert a new condition here. If not, we can figure out where it should go, called auto sales. And it would read, no sale of cars, new or used, is allowed on the site. There is concern that other auto repair shops also sell cars. There's no indication at this point that this applicant wants to sell cars, but this could get sold. And if there's nothing in the special permit, there's nothing that we can do in the future to stop it. So we want to make sure from day one that it's clear, no car sales. Does that seem appropriate by the committee members? And number 9 is fencing, and we do have comments from Priscilla on fencing. It currently reads, the applicant shall install fencing to screen areas of the site used to vehicles. I think she meant used to screen vehicles from the view of abutting properties and public ways, and shall maintain the fencing in good repair. The fencing shall comply with the requirements of all applicable city ordinances. Ms. Ryder's wording is fencing. The applicant shall install solid fencing to screen areas of the site used for storage from the view of abutting properties and public ways, and shall maintain the fencing in good repair. The fencing shall comply with the requirements of all applicable city ordinances. Dumpsters shall also be stored inside this storage area. Does that seem appropriate for the committee members? If we insert her suggested changes.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you. So I agree with the changes. This really gets back to the point I was making originally, as far as making sure that fencing basically blocks access from Walker Street to Maple Street. So however the fences get set up, because my concern is, yes, the fences are set up now to make that blockage. I don't want any changes in the future with the new owner or whatever to basically change that and make sure that there's always, fencing that blocks access between Maple Street and Wilson Street. I'm not sure how to word it in this section. Mr. Falk, do you understand my point, and do you think you're able to word it appropriately?
Yes, you don't want this to be a cut through to avoid the light, folks
Right.
coming through the site. And that's not at all what we would have in mind, because that's going to be a working area. But I understand your point. I'll come up with language to make that clear. I just want to, very well, the fence along Walker may have a gate to allow cars to come in and out as
sure.
needed. So we'll probably clarify that, our own cars may come and go, but it'll be set up in such a way that, through traffic can't use the site to beat the light effectively.
Right. Thank you.
All right, so we will wait for Attorney Falk to give us that language in our next meeting. But I think he understands what you want, Councilor Doucette.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Landers.
Right, just quickly, going back, I guess kind of to 8 and 10. You know, we had a auto body shop or a dealership down on Route 20 East. And at the time, we spent a lot of time on their booth that they do the inside spraying of paint, and then the ventilation system outside. So when you go back to 8, I think it mentions that maintain good working order, an indoor paint spray booth or similar technology. And then when we get down further under air quality, that it shall comply with the city's noise ordinance, it shall, all federal requirements as far as air quality. Is that something that we have to spell out more? Because, you know, the way, I'm not even sure what type of paint they use nowadays, but that was a big, maybe that was 8, 9 years ago, that air quality centering around painting cars inside and the type of ventilating system you have inside and what type of exhaust it sends outside. So do we have to get involved with that somewhere, Madam Chair?
Maybe Attorney Falk can answer. I know we don't have anybody, unfortunately, from site plan, but I believe that specificity would be at site plan level. I'm sure that both the fire chief and Tom DePercio from engineering will make sure if there are any kind of improvements to both fire extinguishing facilities or any kind of air conditioning, air quality that needs to be done, they would make sure that that's done to meet code.
Yeah, I mean, they presently, I believe, have an auto body shop, so they must be well aware, both for the health of their employees, and then you don't want any type of something blowing outside. I mean, Walker Street and Maple Street's a busy street. But maybe we should make a note of that and let that come up and see what they have to say about it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I may, Madam Chair, as Councilor Landers mentioned, we have an existing operation that we're relocating. We have an indoor spray booth that is, complies with all federal and state regulations. It's done indoors, and our current operation is a good, clean operation. We're just going to be relocating it. So, that's why I included in the conditions that we have to comply with all state and federal regulations. These uses are fairly heavily regulated in that regard. Anyway, regardless of whether we need a special permit from the city. But I think 8 and 10 conditions, as they are, offer, plenty of protection for the city. And again, neighboring uses are virtually identical in terms of being auto repair. It's not, we're not plopping this down where it's never been done before. It's in the commercial automotive district. But I appreciate those concerns that we wouldn't want this to be affecting neighbors. And so I think 8 and 10, work well to provide that protection.
Well, that's what I was looking for, Brian. Thank you very much.
All right, so I don't know if I read 10, but as was mentioned, it is noise and air quality. It just states that they need to meet state and federal requirements. Number 11 is paint waste, which currently reads, any excess paint at the site shall be stored in a secure container provided by a professional waste removal vendor, and the container shall be removed and replaced by the vendor as needed. Priscilla Ryder's recommended change to that is to have number 11 read paint, solvents, and hazardous materials waste. Any excess paint, solvents, and hazardous materials at the site shall be stored in a secure container provided by a professional waste removal vendor, and the container shall be removed and replaced by the vendor as needed. That's all okay, I believe. Attorney Falk had indicated that was fine for him. Number 12 are curb cuts. There are 2 curb cuts, one along Maple Street and one along Walker. The existing curb cut along Walker Street closest to the corner of Maple Street shall be eliminated. Priscilla Ryder indicated that that was okay as written. And number 13 is the recording of the decision, which is standard language that we have. I will note that a couple of other things that came up in discussion to add in information about landscaping, where it really, we want the landscaping, I believe her suggestion is to add in landscaping. As this is a gateway corner into the city of Maple Street, the landscaping shall be more robust than the ordinance requires to ensure this is nicely landscaped with trees and shrubs. The final decision on adequacy of landscaping shall be determined by site plan review. The criteria is that the landscaping be sufficient to improve the aesthetics of this corner in all seasons with adequate trees and shrubs. So that can be added in as a new number 13, and we can change 13 to 14, if that seems agreeable to the committee and to Attorney Falk. Right. Also, the suggestion of adding in something about parking of cars, so that the cars on site, let's see, her language was parking areas for cars to be serviced and for customer parking shall be orderly and in designated striped areas to be defined during the site plan review process. No off-site parking is permitted. I would go with her language, but I would add in no off-site and no street parking is permitted, so that that's clear. You can't park on Walker, and I don't think you can park on Maple anyway. So are those all okay with the committee?
I'm fine with that. It's more River Street as far as street parking goes.
And the River Street is now signed, so that there are hours on one side, and I believe on the other side there is no parking at all. So
Okay.
that was all recently dealt with at Traffic Commission. All right, I think that takes care of all of the conditions that were suggested by Ms. Ryder and any other comments that we got. I think we need to set up, we need to have this stay in committee. We can get the revised draft back. Hopefully we can have some comments from the commissioner and maybe some from any other members of site plan if they have anything that they felt needed to be said that we haven't heard. Does that sound like a plan from everybody?
Sure.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Attorney Falk, if you can take what we've given you and come up with a revised draft and submit it back in.
Yep.
And you've got that done, then we'll be back in touch with you to set up a second meeting. And
Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
just leave that one in committee. The next item on our agenda, I believe, Attorney Falk, you're going to be leaving the meeting, or do you plan on staying for this?
If it's just a discussion of the extension, I believe that's what the agenda provides. I don't, unless you have any questions, I don't need to stay around for that.
All right, thank you, Attorney Falk. So the next item on our agenda, which that I marked, is a request to extend to May 28th, the application for the special permit by WP Marlborough, Mass, owner LLC, Wayside Residential, 339 Boston Post Road East, to construct a multi-family dwelling residential project, farm, order number 20-107-995B. It is a application for the committee to vote on. Is there discussion or a motion to approve the extension?
I have no questions, and I'm willing to motion to approve the extension.
Doucette has moved, and I second the agreement to extend the time limitations to May 28th, 2021 until 10 p.m. Is there discussion? Seeing none from the committee, is anybody? Oh,
Oh,
Councilor.
actually, I wanted the extension. I think to clarify, the last time we talked about this, the concern was about the light. I didn't know, Madam Chair, if you were going to mention that, or just wanted to reiterate that part of the decision is about exploring whether a light could be added to that area, and that's the purpose behind this.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. Yes, I had thought to mention that. I think that based on the last committee meeting, there was discussion that we were urging the petitioner to do what he could to get the state to agree to put a light on. He asked for time to do that. Giving him that time, I think, is important, and therefore, I believe that's what the request is, so that they can move forward working with the state. So thank you for that reminder and clarification. Is there discussion for anybody else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of extending, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Counselor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Council Landis votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. So that is approved as an extension. And I will, before we get to the last item on our agenda, take this opportunity to bring up something that I have thought of for a while, being Chair of Urban Affairs, and that's the need for some guidance from the city solicitor on exactly what it means for city council to approve and to deny a special permit. So in discussing this with him, it was suggested that the best way to do it would be to set up a special Urban Affairs Committee meeting dedicated to having a open, very generic discussion with him guiding us through case law and suggestions from the court on cases. It's not specific to any particular petition. We have several before us. We have several that were on our agenda for Monday that we will be looking at in the future. I think it's just, this is a good time while we're holding on a particular special permit, but I think that it's a good time to bring it here. And I know we do have the solicitor with us if anybody does have any questions as to exactly what this would entail.
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette. Yeah, my only question I have is, effectively, I'll enjoy this, I'm sorry, but how long do you think it's going to take? I mean, how long of a walk are we going through this stuff?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how deeply the solicitor wants to dig and how much casework he wants to bring before us. I don't know, Mr. Grossfield, if you have an idea. I would guess that it's probably not going to be a 5-hour meeting. I'm guessing maybe an hour of input from him, maybe less than that, depending on what he has for information. So I don't know, Solicitor Grossfield, do you have any idea?
Madam Chair, good evening, members. I'm happy to support the work of the committee in any way that's going to be both helpful and efficient. So I would gear my presentation to, as the chair mentioned, to sort of update the council or the committee on the most recent case law that's out there, and generally touch on what the committee already knows, which is, there's a lot that goes into making a decision on a special permit, and we have both the criteria in the zoning ordinance. We make detailed findings when we grant a special permit, and we can talk more about that, and we can talk about, in the case when a special permit is denied, what's required in a decision for that. So I will tailor it in that way, and I could talk with the chair. We could talk offline about setting up, what the schedule would look like for that.
Thank you, Solicitor Grossfield.
Madam Chair, Council Landis,
Councilor Landers.
is it a public meeting? Would it be a regular urban affairs meeting that we would hold just as we're holding this?
That would be my suggestion, that we do
think it would
this
have to
as an
be,
urban affairs meeting. It's not a public hearing, it is an urban affairs meeting. So it would be something that would be on the television for people to view. It would be on the city website after the meeting for people to view, especially counselors who might not be able to attend as a reference. But it would be a public meeting, yes.
So we'd have to be careful about mentioning any current special permits before us or any that are coming before us, wouldn't we?
Correct. It's a generic discussion on suggestions from the solicitor based on case law.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, I can't tell who's speaking. Was that?
I'll let Laura go first.
Oh, well, I just was, sound like if there's no further discussion, I was going to move that we extend the invitation to the city solicitor and set up this meeting, and I'm really appreciative of this opportunity, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the city to understand, members of the public to understand how this works as well, so thank you for offering this, suggesting this.
All right, I'm going to take that as a motion from Councilor Wagner. She moves to extend an invitation to the solicitor to come before us at a future meeting to offer guidance on approval and denial of special permits using case law. Is there a discussion? I'm sorry, Councilor Doucette?
No, that's fine. I think this is an absolutely great idea, and I think it's not only beneficial to the citizens of, the city, but also anyone thinking of getting into the city council or something like that. This is part, this becomes a historical piece that, not to put you on the spot, Jason, but, this presentation can have legs as far as just covering the material that's usually not covered, and it's very insightful for people trying to come up to speed with the workings of a city.
Thank you, and I believe, I was not actually able to attend it, but I believe there was a prior meeting like this that was done as a private meeting. It was only for the city council, and I believe a similar one was done with the ZBA. I really feel, as you just stated, this needs to be a meeting that the public can listen to. They can't participate in, but they can listen to it and hear the same thing that we're hearing, so that they understand what we're doing going forward. So on the motion, is there further discussion?
Madam Chair, one quick comment.
Landers?
I'd like to think if Jason could or has a chance that 5 to 7 days before the meeting, he would give us some of the material that we might be, whether the case studies or what, that we could have in 5 to 7 days before the meeting. What do you think, Jason?
Through the chair, absolutely. I think that would be that's a great idea, and I think it would be most helpful to get written materials out in advance.
Well, we'd have our questions and everything. I think that'd be a plus. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of us extending the invitation to the solicitor at a future meeting? And I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landis votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Wagner.
Wagner votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. Thank you all for your indulgence in that. I know it was not something on the agenda. It was just a good time to fit it in. We can complete the items on our agenda with our third item, which is order number 20-108-100, that the City Council consider the feasibility of adopting a process whereby murals will be allowed in the city as a means to further the cultural and artistic value of the city's downtown district. That was submitted by Councilor Perlman, and Councilor Perlman is with us, and I believe she has a PowerPoint and we'll be offering some comments and then we can open it up for discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chair Roby. And if Steve is able to pull up the presentation, I will wait for that. Thank you. Okay, so originally February 1st, so good to be here with you all. And I want to thank you, members of the Urban Affairs Committee and my fellow councilors who are also in attendance for the opportunity to be before you today to discuss an innovative, timely, and exciting opportunity for the city of Marlborough, this proposed mural ordinance. As we think about what it means for Marlborough to be a community to live, work, and play, I cannot imagine a better activity to reflect this vision than public art. I've also asked Luis Cato, the Cultural District's Program Manager of the Mass Cultural Council, for his remarks, which I will share at the end of the presentation, so he can put the work that we might pursue in Marlborough in context in the region as well. Go to the next slide. So the purpose of this presentation in the order overall is to develop a clear process for murals in the city. As seen throughout the presentation, there has been community interest to pursue murals in the past, and we have an opportunity as the City Council to be proactive and set up a transparent and consistent process so that it is mutually beneficial for all parties involved. To start, I will talk about the benefits of murals overall, the background of some past efforts to add murals, and the suggested language changes to the city code in additions to make murals accessible. Next slide. So to start, I just wanted to have a shared definition of murals. Given many of the misnomers about murals and signs, I thought it'd be helpful to start with this shared definition. So here in the slide, I have a definition available for us to use in this conversation. Some tenets that make specifically a mural rather than another entity is its originality, if it's hand created and not having a commercial message. And we'll return to these concepts later as well. So as the definition states, it's a one-of-a-kind, hand-painted, hand-tiled, or digitally printed image on the exterior wall of a building that does not contain any commercial message. The next slide. So why murals? Promoting arts in Marlborough is far from a new idea. Our city code has language that created an Office of Cultural Affairs that dates back to the late 1970s. And as stated in the code, Chapter 7, Article 6, the Office of Cultural Affairs would, quote, promote the cultural activities of the city of Marlborough, to seek federal, state, and local funds, to accept grants, gifts, and any other gratuities with the approval of the mayor and city council, and to coordinate cultural activities as may be assigned to it. Further, our city has worked hard to obtain a state cultural district designation under the Mass Cultural Council. This program was launched in 2011 and intends to, quote, drive economic growth, strengthen our distinctive local character, and improve the quality of life of families across Massachusetts, end quote. Here, it is the Marlborough Downtown Village Cultural District. And I want to pull out two relevant lines from the self-described overview of the designation. This cultural district is an architecturally attractive, ethnically diverse, and inviting area that is easily accessible by bus, car, bike, and foot. The downtown's cultural assets are enjoyed by residents from all parts of the city, and cultural stakeholders have endeavored to increase downtown Marlborough's profile across the region and further expand upon its natural assets. Marlborough's cultural district encompasses the building blocks to a blossoming cultural district in ways that are authentic to the city. And I've also listed here on the slide for you all that residents have already been responding very positively to the pockets of art that do exist in our city, such as the painted light boxes that the mayor's office has done, funded by the Cultural Council here in Marlborough, the rail trail art that I know is on the Hudson side of the tunnel, as well as the museum in the street. So we're really grateful for these efforts. And another benefit of murals is the opportunity to bring economic development to the included areas through increased foot traffic and destination distinction for the city and the neighborhoods where murals reside. It is common for people to intentionally seek out murals, and appreciating public art in this way is both a socially distant and free activity that transcends periods of difficulty, such as during this COVID-19 pandemic, as well as transcending socioeconomic status. Next slide. Further, arguments for allowing murals in 2021 fit well with the citywide efforts to revitalize our downtown, the state's funding to redo Lincoln Street, additional downtown housing, and the new library project. Opportunity is knocking, and the council can have a head start on connecting all of these projects. And as I've listed here on the slide, some things that were kind of highlighted, but I will reiterate, murals can increase foot traffic, build pride and social value in the community, establishes Marlborough even more as a destination to visit, as we know that it's already a coveted area in the Commonwealth. opportunities for community partnerships. And as I mentioned before, it is well timed with the commitments to revitalizing downtown, Lincoln Street, and the new library. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, this work to pursue murals in Marlborough builds off the work of others in this community whose bold vision also included art at its center. Back in 2008, members of Old Marlborough Inc. put forth a proposal to the City Council to develop a series of historical murals in the downtown area. You should have received a copy of this proposal. Compliments of Councillor Landers, who was able to get a copy, and Karen for scanning it for everybody. The proposal did reach the Urban Affairs Committee, where the city solicitor recommended an amendment to the sign ordinance to exempt public art from its scope, in addition to specific language about public art. Unfortunately, the item remained in committee and did not go to the full council for a vote. It is here that we continue their important work. So I did want to acknowledge the incredible work of Old Marlborough Inc. and Bob Kane, who put forth this proposal. And as you all have seen, it was a very extensive design of all the possibilities of historic murals in the city. And so I did want to say that even though this is maybe newer for some of us on the council, it is something that is a continuation of work that was started before. Next slide. So just as prioritizing art in Marlborough is not a new idea, murals exist across the Commonwealth and have added immense cultural, economic, and aesthetic value to the communities. Over here on the left of this slide, I have a mural from the city of Lynn. This is the Eastern Bank parking lot. And for those of you who may have been following, Lynn is a very active mural community and a destination to visit in the Commonwealth. And then over here on the right, we have an example from Haverhill. And this is a picture from when the mural was unveiled. And it highlights the different immigrant stories of folks who are from the Haverhill area and who have moved there. So these are two great examples of how the murals have really brightened up an area and have shown pride in the community. Next slide. Continuing on these examples, on the left is a map of the walking tour of murals in the city of Salem. This also demonstrates how trafficked these murals are, that they want to provide a layout for visitors, just as we provided a layout for the museum in the streets. And these individuals will undoubtedly also contribute to the local economy and support small businesses. So that image on the left is a downloadable mural map for the Salem walking tour. And on the right, our close neighbor Framingham has this gorgeous mural celebrating the different musical instruments. This mural is also an entry wall into the downtown area, so it is available for all to see and invites visitors to take advantage of the downtown offerings. And as Councilor Doucette had mentioned earlier in the meeting of gateways to the city, this would be an example of a gateway to Framingham as well. Other cities with robust murals include New Bedford, Cambridge, Northampton, Gloucester, Boston, North Adams, Pittsfield, Worcester, Springfield, the list goes on. And so I do want to reiterate, though this idea has not come to fruition yet in Marlborough, it is not a new idea. Next slide. So building off of the recommendations of the past solicitor, I'm recommending the following changes and really do welcome the feedback of the committee. So first, I am recommending revising the sign ordinance to include the words "except a mural," which are highlighted here in context in red in the slide, into chapter 526-4-A after the words "no sign." And so this is a continued argument of how we need to differentiate what a mural is as compared to a sign. Second, I recommend including a mural definition, which was seen earlier in the slide, into chapter 526-2, which is where other definitions lie already in the section. And so this definition would read that a mural is a one-of-a-kind, hand-painted, hand-tiled, or digitally printed image on the exterior wall of a building that does not contain any commercial message. Next slide. After thorough review of how other cities and towns in Massachusetts approach murals, many utilize a public art commission or review body to go over proposed mural projects. In your packets, you should have the direct language of the Public Art Commission that I am proposing, as an addition to Chapter 19 of the City Code that would become Article 7. The language of this commission is directly based off the language of past commissions, as already noted in the City Code. Before turning the conversation over to all of you for questions and comments, I did want to provide some additional context. In preparing for this order, I did speak with the city solicitor, who I believe is still on the line with us tonight, the Historical Commission, Code Enforcement, the Mass Cultural Council, various interested residents who I've seen come through to express their support, and cultural affairs or directors from other Massachusetts communities, such as the executive director of the Cambridge Arts Council. And so before turning it over to you, I do want to read remarks from Luis Cotto for his statewide and regional context. And as a reminder, he is the Cultural District Program Manager for the Mass Cultural Council, and Marlborough is represented in the district that he covers. So these are his remarks. Hello, Councilor Perlman and members of the Urban Affairs Committee. Firstly, thank you for your service. By way of introduction, my name is Luis Cato. I'm a program manager with the Mass Cultural Council, where I oversee the agency's Cultural District Initiative, of which the Marlborough Downtown Village Cultural District is one of our current cohort 49 districts. I also work with local cultural councils in 2 regions, Greater Merrimack and Metro West, which is where I connect with Councilor Perlman. I want to congratulate this committee, the City Council, and the City of Marlborough for entertaining legislation that will start the process of having a formal public art policy in the City of Marlborough. As a city, you are ahead of a current issue that many of our cultural districts and other municipalities are facing. Within our cultural districts, we have a number of cities that embrace public art in their municipality. They move forward with some great initiatives, but this has happened via a gatekeeper model that starts with one individual within the city or town, but no formal structure to efficiently entertain requests. Municipalities are finding this model to be unsustainable as people come and go within the town or city. The ordinance amendments, and in this case of the Public Art Commission ordinance creation that you consider tonight, puts you ahead of the curve in this aspect. Outside of the cultural districts world, we're seeing towns like Northborough and Milford moving forward with public art committees to discuss this very topic. In Northborough's case, the town has allocated some funds from their local cultural council to initiate a pilot public art program this year. On a larger scale, Lowell is also currently in the process of creating a public mural ordinance. In my position, I'm able to see how these cultural manifestations not only positively affect the local community, but I'm also able to see a much broader effect at a regional scale. When I look at the greater Marlborough area, I see some great public art initiatives happening. Along with Northborough examples, there's art on the initiative in Hudson, in Maynard. The local cultural council always leads a public mural effort that is slowly accumulating wonderful selfie opportunities for locals, as well as visitors. And in Framingham, our most recently designated cultural district, the downtown is similarly peppered with murals that celebrate the city's cultural vibrancy. In the same way that people have made Lynn and Salem must-visits due to their own mural initiative, so can the greater Marlborough region become a magnet for public art staycation tourists. Again, I commend you for your foresight and look forward to assisting Councilor Perlman and any other stakeholders with any follow-up steps. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Civically and culturally yours, Luis. So those are his remarks that he shares, and I'll be sure to make sure that gets to every councilor at the conclusion of this meeting as I receive them today. And so as we have seen from the numerous communications from the public, this is the right time to be pursuing such an inclusive and artistic vision for our city. Murals are an innovative, vibrant, and additive effort to our city's existing programs. I look forward to discussing this further with the committee, and thank you so much for your time, especially on a very long meeting night.
All right, thank you, Councilor Perlman, for your very enthusiastic remarks and for bringing this back to the council. I'm going to open this up for Urban Affairs Committee members for comments, questions. I see Councilor Doucette has his hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Councilor Perlman, don't worry about it. They always save the best for last. So, great job in identifying, reviewing this. This is actually something that I would love to see. When I heard that you're looking into this, I thought it'd be great. As I was talking before about the building at the intersection of Wilson Street and Maple, I think that's a good opportunity for that. There's one thing that always comes to me is like the first time that I had exposure to downtown, it was going down Granger Boulevard and seeing 2 huge parking garages on my left. And it was like, what the heck is this? You know, and having some sort of art on those buildings would redefine the community downtown, you know, just as a, you know, I always thought that'd be something good to put there. I agree with everything that you said with one exception. I think that instead of creating another committee, that this should still, you know, the role of the Cultural Council should cover murals. And so therefore we don't necessarily have to create another committee, because I do think that this could be done within the Cultural Council if we change the charter of the Cultural Council. I'd rather see that than create another committee, which we have a hard time finding staffing for. But I'd like to hear what other councilors say. I've said my piece. Thank you very much.
All right, other members of the Urban Affairs Committee? Councilor Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a great idea too. And when my children were in Kane's school, I remember the year they painted the mural there, and it was so exciting, and it just created such a wonderful sense of community, and the kids were just so connected to that project. They got to help paint it. I love public art. I think this is a wonderful idea, and that would be the only reservation I have, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness in this, that to have some kind of a process that really evaluate, how we would consider the projects. And, after the horrendous example on the west side of town of the sign that that was just such a gross caricature of Italian people, that sensitivity around cultural, respecting culture and respect, and making sure that somebody's good intentions doesn't contribute to cultural misappropriation. There's a lot of things to celebrate, and as long as there's a thoughtful process behind the selection of the processes, I think it's a wonderful idea.
If I may, Madam Chair, could I respond to that inquiry?
Yes.
So I think you raise a wonderful point around the guidelines, and typically what I've seen from other communities is, whatever the body is, if it is a public art commission, they then create their own guidelines that are available public of what they want to see for murals in the community. So it would allow for that structure, and hopefully it would be a very representative body, as I put into the Public Art Commission, that would have viewpoints from those who might be on the receiving end within the city, but also interested members. And I did indicate, I think, a priority to have an artist also on the commission, to be able to have that viewpoint, since some of us might be coming from it from a different angle. So I completely agree with you. We want to make sure it is so proactive and very thoughtful, because we do want to have murals that are very celebratory and culturally competent within the community.
Any other members of Urban Affairs?
Madam Chair.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers. Of course, I'd be very supportive of this, and I gave you some material this week that I think if we combine both, we could come up with a great project. That is a wake-up call, though, what happened a few months ago on the council floor regarding the Italian restaurant on the other side of town. When I first saw it, I was a little bothered that they went ahead and did it without go-ahead and permission and so forth like that. And, it didn't bother me that much until my colleagues, Councilor Wagner and Councilor Navin, they brought it up, which just tells me, Councilor Perlman, that, whether it's a commission or a group, who has the final say on what goes in. Because initially, visiting other cities and towns over the last few years, if you get involved with historical events, not that you will duplicate, the museum in the street, but start somewhere along the line like that, you're not apt to get in trouble. But yet, at some point, we'll have to get into the fact that Marlborough's a very diverse city, and we want to play that up. I always think of back when, maybe when I first ran for office or something, Marlborough went from an Apple community to high boot, and then high tech or something. So if you're careful who makes up the committee or the commission or what, and be very sensitive. You don't want a group of people to get on a committee, they've lived in town for 3 years, and in 3 years they're gonna move out, and they leave you with stuff that really doesn't reflect not just the old timers like myself, but what people think of Marlborough. But I want to give you a pat in the back for taking this initiative. I think some of us have sat around since 2008, which is 12 or 13 years, whatever it is. And I think the Museum in the Street gave us the idea that that's what people like, they want. Of course, we got to start playing that up again. I mean, this past year has killed a lot of things. But anything that can attract people, to the city, museum and murals and stuff like that, But we gotta be careful, I think, of the makeup of the committees, committee, or commission, and then somewhere along the line, certain guidelines, what some of the themes. Personally, I hate to disagree with my good friend Dave Doucette, but we're putting an auto body shop in the entrance to the city, and I'm not sure. I think he wants to put a mirror of a tow truck or something there. I'm not sure, so we have to be careful of that. But I pat you in the back. Good job, and I'm not sure exactly where you're going, and I bugged you a couple of times this week to get material to you and everything. Now, I mentioned, and maybe, Madam Chair, this is for you. Have we ever thought of having a public hearing on this? I did that with the transfer station. We had it in committee, we started talking, and then one night I decided, let's have a public hearing. Let's get it out there in the community. Unfortunately, it would, we can't have probably an in-person. But I don't know, Madam Chair, and then Committee Member Perlman, is there any value to that? I mean, how do we get it out there?
Councilor Landers, I did actually have a discussion with Councilor Perlman about a public hearing. My opinion on a public hearing at this point is that it's not really appropriate. I know when you had the public hearing, we had very specific language that had been looked at by the solicitor and input from department heads. I think what we have now is a start. And I think that now it's the role of this committee to take that start, and then maybe when we have a more completed package, there could be a discussion of moving it to a public hearing. But I think that at this point, it's the concept, and we're beginning the discussion, and we need to keep it in committee.
Yeah,
We have all received lots of input based on what is known, but I think we need to have a lot of discussion going forward.
How long would you have the discussion and then the public hearing? I mean, how do you get the feel of what people want and don't want out there?
At this point, I think it's what the council wants, what this committee wants. So we have work to do. Is there further discussion by committee members?
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I agree, and I'd like to thank Councilor Perlman for bringing this forward. I do think there is a tremendous amount of value that the city can have and gain from public art, and how we do it, I think is just as important as what we're doing. And so I think this is thoughtful, and I enjoy having the opportunity to have this discussion. That said, I've seen this transpire in a couple of other communities, and the way that the commission will kind of evaluate what goes forward and how it goes forward is going to be incredibly important. One of the more prominent venues where public art has gone on for installations has been on the Rose Kennedy Greenway in downtown Boston, and the large mural that's on I believe it's the Steam building down there. And I was tangentially working with some folks who were on that project, and sometimes murals go up and sometimes people don't appreciate them, and sometimes they need to change, and they've evolved on some of that artwork. And I think that's an important lesson that people can take away, is not just putting up a piece of art, but then maybe it's an evolving project. And as we get further down the road on this, how are we going to implement it, and be mindful that things change, opinions change, tastes change. And so, I think that's incredibly important. To build on what Councilor Landers said about having some sort of public process, perhaps, here is not the venue we should have a public process, but perhaps as part of the commission, a public process should be involved. And it shouldn't just be the, 7 members of the commission that are picking the artwork, but, it should be more of a community process. I think, by getting public buy-in earlier in the process before things are, put on walls or put on parking garages will certainly help. One of the questions I did have, and this may just be my ignorance as a newer counselor, if we are to change the sign ordinance in this manner, a couple of people have already referenced the issues that we had with the Italian restaurant out on the west end of the city. Would something like that then be allowed in this current definition? And because it says that there's no commercial message, however, I could see an argument being made that the mural that is painted on the side of the building is not necessarily commercial. And so do we open up, ourselves to some other unintended consequences? And then the other point I would then offer, or another question I had, Councilor Perlman, for you. Councilor Doucette had suggested that this could possibly get lumped into the Cultural Council. Do the current members on the council have that kind of expertise, or is that something where we would really want to kind of specifically pick people to have that kind of oversight?
Councilor Perlman, would you like to answer that specific question?
Yes, thank you. I've been very writing a lot of notes because I think the feedback that we've been getting from the committee is very fruitful, and I'm so appreciative. To answer, a couple questions when you talked about sort of would this fall under the definition, I'm definitely open to making a malleable definition. That's what is used is what I have seen in the city of Los Angeles for their mural program, and so it is a definition, I think, with the commercial message, with the guidelines of what this commission would have, it could be very clear in more depth what a commercial message looks like. And again, when that sign came before the council, that was a reactive thing, right? We didn't get to set that process in motion, which this would hopefully prevent. And then additionally to your second question, I am currently on the Cultural Council, so I would leave that up to this committee, whether they want the jurisdiction of the group to be from the Public Art Commission that could be developed or something else. I do think being thoughtful about the membership so that it does have, different age demographics and being able to be representative of different skill sets in the community is really valuable. A lot of folks currently on the council do typically have an interest in the arts, but it's not always visual arts. It could be performative or music or other entities. So I do want to put that out there. And then, Madam Chair, if I may, to Councilor Lander's earlier point around, kind of what might become a mural, I will just reiterate some things around how this is newer for Marlborough, but various communities across the Commonwealth successfully have mural programs. And so I do want to preface that we just need to find the right process for us. I think it is a very positive value. And as someone who grew up in the community of Marlborough, and I know there's been a lot of interest in bringing more young professionals into the city, I see this as a huge asset in that regard. And I know that my favorite part of the sort of visuals in Marlborough has always been that tunnel of the rail trail because of its art. And I can imagine that being something that future generations will also appreciate and will become part of the infrastructure of our city.
All right, so I think I'm the final committee member. I just have a couple of brief comments. I know it's getting late, and I'm assuming that this is going to remain in committee for a while. My first comment will be, I guess when I first talked to Councilor Perlman on this, my hope was that this would not be something that was a quick sign ordinance fix. To me, the sign ordinance is very specific to signs, and so to now throw into the sign ordinance something that says, except a mural, just defeats the whole purpose of having the specificity of a sign. I would prefer to include in the code a whole new edition of something called a mural, and include in that then maybe the definition and some of the other specificity. My second concern, first I guess I will address the comment of Councilor Doucette that he thinks it should be the Cultural Arts Commission. I guess I would totally disagree, and I know this was another discussion I had with Councilor Perlman. To me, both the state and the city code have very specific language of what the Cultural Arts Council does. It takes the grant money from the state and decides which projects to support. It's very specific what their role is. It has nothing to do with murals, other than maybe they would grant an artist money to put up a mural, assuming there was that ability. So I won't get into them tonight, but I do have some concerns with the commission. especially with the statement that the rules and regulations say that the commission can adopt reasonable regulations regarding the use of the land and building under its permanent or temporary control. My understanding is the city council is the control of all city buildings. Private buildings are under the control of the owner. So the cultural council, this Public Arts Commission would not have control of anything. They would need to get the permission of the city council to approve anything that they would do. So I guess I have several issues with that, but I think we can get into that at a further meeting. At this point, I'm going to open it up to other councilors who might be on, and I'm going to ask Councilor Orem, although he may not have his hand up. Were you here the whole time? Because I called your name.
Yes, except for about
respond.
What happened, Madam Chair, is that my computer went down on me. I had to plug it in. So I might have missed 2 minutes of it and came right back, and so I've been here the whole time.
Okay, I just want to make sure that my record.
Except for those 2 minutes of technical difficulty.
Okay.
If I may, if I can have the floor, I concur with you about the fact that some of this has to weigh in on the city council. So maybe we could have the commission that's being proposed as the advisory to the city council, or have city council members, as we do on our various energy committees, where we're always looking for inexpensive energy, and MEDC is another example. We have councilors that serve on those committees. So it could be looked at either way, but I agree with you that the city council ultimately should be making the final decisions on each mural. I think it would give us just the opportunity after being advised through the committee. But one note I would like to add is Marlborough's always had murals. We got The Rock. We got The Rock more than the local stations do right now. So we've always had a mural in Marlborough, and it changes every week almost. So, and I have to say, and there's been a lot of good murals, if you want to call them, or paintings on that. That rock probably has 1,000+ layers of paint on it, but they've all been done in good taste. But that's more of a message board, unfortunately, for people that are being honored or have passed. But we do have one already, so it's nothing new. And in speaking with some of the Main Street vendors, I know that, and thank you, Councilor Landers, there's always been the consideration for this. So I'd like to thank Councilor Perlman for bringing it back to Urban Affairs and to the City Council. I think it's overdue, but it has to be done properly so we don't get those arguments from businesses that might say, well, that's a mural, why are you making me take it down? So indeed, that is one of the toughest decisions we'll have to make to prevent that, so we don't have the potential to have a business using a mural as their advertising. And we don't want any little gray areas in that, in my view. So outside of that, I have to say on Facebook recently, and this made me think of what this project could probably lean on from that or be part of it, is someone asked on Facebook, what were the names of Marlborough in the past? Shoe City, Highland City, and many other, it was called Seven Hills when I was a kid. I grew up on a hill in Marlborough, but again, it's one of those things that would be a great opportunity to have someone say, could you draw a mural? I'm looking at Wilson Chew's city sign on our website right now. That's beautiful. I'd love to see that in a mural, and other, maybe where our names came, our history, our deep history and deep heritage. So that's all I have to say for now, and I just hope we can be active on this. I'd be willing to help anyone. Council Perlman, anything I can do to help, and I referred you to a few people that have been involved. I'd love to see this not sit in committee too long. Hopefully we can be active on this in 3 to 6 months, have something that can be reported out so we can keep moving, because it's been stalled a couple times in my times in Marlborough. So I thank all of you and look forward to working with you on this.
All right, other councilors who have comments that haven't spoken yet?
Madam Chair, Councilor Ossing.
Councilor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could have the clerk pull up. To answer Councilor Landers' question, for the public hearing, these are ordinance changes. So when the ordinance is changed and presented to the council formally, there would be a public hearing at that point. If you want to solicit their input ahead of time, I don't know, use that social media, MySpace thing, if you want to use that.
Party in my backyard.
There you go. So thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to present some information to Urban Affairs Committee that's important to consider before taking a vote on the mural information that's as presented tonight, which I know you won't be voted on, but it's important that I bring up some of this stuff. All right, so as you can see on your screen, I remind the councilors that we all voted 11-0 to remove this mural from the Aviva wall in November. And oh, by the way, as of 9 o'clock this morning, it is still there. All right, just for the record. So the reason for that vote was some councilors felt it was offensive, which is okay. It was 3 individuals painted on the sign of a building, and I acknowledge their concerns. But that is the heart of the mural issue. Someone felt it was offensive, okay? The ordinance change as presented, this mural would be allowed, and it would be offending people. What's presented before us, I can only go by what's in front of us right now, right? Be painted on the exterior of a building. It does not contain a commercial message. Yeah, it has, there's nothing that says go shop at any particular store. It's a painting. So you could put that anywhere in the city according to what's presented before us right now. So it satisfies that definition. And this is the heart of the issue. What is art to one person can be offensive to someone else. You can take that down now. I don't want to be offending anybody else. All right, so the city developed a sign ordinance to preserve the character of the city by having the council in specific areas approve signs. And I think you've heard that tonight. To leave that out of the council's control, to let murals go up anywhere, it's not going to, we put a lot of work on the sign ordinance, and you see all the challenges with signs. To now just say we're going to let murals go anywhere? Does the council really want to give up this responsibility and let an artist who we do not know put up murals that we do not sanction? Because there's nothing in here that says how that gets approved. It just says you can do a mural, go at it. So I ask you to carefully weigh that decision. So the council back in 2006 and 2008 had 2 chances to address murals. Orders 06-1273 and 08-1821. In both cases, it never even made it out of committee. And that was a plan that said where to put them, what the content would be, and it still didn't make it out of committee. Right? Councilor Farrow at the time stated, there's a very fine line between art and officially sanctioned graffiti. Legal at the time advised the council that control over the content would not be in the council control, and lawsuits would follow, which I think the councils took extremely serious back then. So I'm not sure what's changed between then and now, but that would need to be addressed at a minimum. Again, 2 different councils voted and did not even vote, or 2 different councils had the opportunity, but did not even get a chance to vote because it did not even make it out of committee. So let's talk about the order itself submitted by the councilor. It specifies the downtown district, all right? The change that's before you right now does not mention any section of the town. So what, as presented, means any house, building, anywhere in the city could apply for a mural. Again, as presented right now. So let's talk about the next one, the Public Arts Commission. Again, Councilor Doucette, you hit it on the head. Why create another bottom? The Cultural Council should take this on. Yes, Mass General Law, Chapter 10, Section 58 says what they do, but there's no reason they can't do. They're the folks that control the art stuff in the city. Why not let them expand those roles? Section 1952, it says the Public Arts Commission serves only as advisory capacity. Okay, advises who? It doesn't say. Section 1954 of that ordinance that's before you tonight indicates the board has, as Councilor Roby said, the use of land and buildings under its permanent or temporary control. The board has no such power over any land or any buildings. This should be removed. It's supposed to be, as stated above, an advisory board. And in section 1955, it's worded, I haven't been able to figure out, isn't clear to me, but city departments are in no way going to be rendering services to the board. Again, it's an advisory board is what's being presented. So again, this is another public body that has no clear direction. And my opinion is, and I agree with Councilor Doucette 100%, let the Cultural Council take that portion on. So now going to the PowerPoint slides. On slide 3, what is a mural? Well, that's all right. I'll just talk through them. So what is a mural? It needs to restrict social issues, similar to commercial issues. Again, I go back to, do you not want to offend anyone? Because what's offensive to, what's applicable to someone may not be good to someone else. So I look forward to that definition that does not offend anyone. But as written right now, I'm not sure that covers what we'd be looking for. Slide 6, which is Bob Kane's proposal. It was targeted for the historic district with murals of historic significance relating to Marlborough. Just what Council Land is talking about. Once that, but again, what's before you does not say that. It also required liability insurance for these murals. It required setting up a fund for maintenance for the murals, because they're going to fade. They're not going to be on our buildings. They're going to be on someone else's building. Then going down to the second part of that, the solicitor did not recommend an amendment to the council. And this is important because it's misleading. The solicitor never did. He put out a memo to the Urban Affairs Chair saying, if you go this route, things to consider, but never recommended to go ahead with the amendment. So that's an important point. Maybe our solicitor will have a different opinion, but at the time, that was not what the solicitor was recommending. Slide 8, the proposed changes, adding the word "except a mural" as being the only change. Councilor Roby, you're right on the money. Means they can go anywhere in the city, houses, retail buildings, anywhere. I mean, that's not really a change, adding the word, except murals. Again, we go through so much pain and signs, and to give up that control in the council, do you really want to do that? So slide 8, I concur, a clear definition. We need a clear definition that protects the city and does not open the opportunity for legal challenges. The definition that's presented does not do that. And then slide 9, the Public Arts Commission. I agree with Councilor Doucette, don't need one. It can be easily handled by the Cultural Council. If you want to bring on other bodies, you can do that. Expand the membership. But again, why create another body when we have one that can do it now? So in closing, Madam Chair, unlike signs, we're unable, as presented, we're unable to control the content for murals. We're unable to control the location for the murals, and we don't know who the artists are. So I asked the Urban Affairs to consider if giving up control to allow murals to go anywhere with content the council does not control is in the best interest of the city. And I don't think you will. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I see a couple of hands of people that have already spoken. I'm going to hold off on calling on you and see if any other non-committee members have comments they would like to offer at this point. No one is jumping at the opportunity. All right, I'm going to go. I believe, Councilor Perlman, you had your hand up first, but I'm not positive.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to kind of be able to respond to some of the comments that were raised by President Ossing. And first of all, I want to thank him for his feedback. I'm very excited about this being a collaborative process. And I think one of the benefits of getting this into committee was to start that dialogue. And a lot of the information that I'm going to respond to was sort of based off both the language in a pre-existing code for commissions, as well as what I've seen work well in other communities. So first, to go back to something that I know Madam Chair Roby mentioned around the jurisdiction of the Cultural Council, I'm certainly very open to this being part of that body's responsibilities. In other communities, we have seen the Cultural Council take more of an expansive role in proactively promoting the arts, not just granting funding. And so I think the bare minimum is that they can grant the funding, but that's definitely not out of the question. And so I do support that as well as the proponent of this item. And mentioning sort of the advisory capacity, also very supportive of that, to have the city council still have the final say and have this, whatever the body ends up being, whether it is the Cultural Council or this Public Art Commission, being able to then make a recommendation just as other entities would to the city council. And in regard to the image that was shared from a previous sign on a building, I would argue that that was a result of not having a proactive process in the city. If we were able to put something into language within the code regarding both the nature of what a mural is, and I do support Councilor Roby's recommendation that this is a separate element within the code, then we would be able to be on the front end of a lot of that work and not have these signs come before us that could be seen in a negative light. And then referring back to some of the slides that I did share with the council of what other communities have done, there have been a lot of positive things that didn't include people that I also think are very relevant. You saw like colors and plants, and as well as having the musical instruments. So I do think if the city council is the final body and there are guidelines when people apply to do a mural, then there would be a clear way to prevent any sort of indication of a negative mural as seen by the council. And then also I would sort of reiterate that this is an early stage of the process. We would be receiving feedback just as we have from other proposals from the different department heads. I'm very happy to dedicate the time to work with Madam Chairwoman Roby, as well as you, Councilor Ossing, to ensure that all of those things are met, because I do think that we have a shared vision for success in the community, and I'm willing to find that key component for both of us. And the last thing that I would just add as well is that I think a lot of the elements from previous things, like I remember the chicken ordinance, that was something that there didn't exist in the past, but it was still pursued. And so I wouldn't let that be a deterrent that right now, we could just stop the process when other communities have had it as such a celebratory element. And we're continuing to grow in both our economics and traffic in the city, people wanting to be downtown and being this element so we can designate an area. I think the sort of main objective of this meeting was to get it before you all for this feedback, since the ideas kept ruminating in my own head, and I wanted to make sure that we were incorporating what this council wants collectively. So in conclusion, it is a collaborative process, and I do welcome all of this feedback. So I'll reserve the rest of my time, and I see Councilor Doucette's hand as well.
Councilor Doucette. Councilor Doucette, you are muted.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate Councilor Ossing bringing up some of the issues as well. I think a couple of things that listening to some of the other councilors talked about, these murals need to be, there has to be an approval process for the murals, right? That somehow, it's not that the city's gonna just say yes to anything, because then we are in a heap of trouble at that point. There has to be some sort of approval process, whether or not it's the council or a commission. We can argue that over the next couple of weeks. But I think that some approval process has to be clarified. What Councilor Orm was talking about as far as the rock goes, I actually think the rock should be a special case where it is basically a public mural forum, however we want to describe it, that basically anyone can put anything there, because that's what's going on now. And maybe we should identify other parts of the city where something similar can happen, and I'm just throwing that out because I think that the rock is something, every time you go by, there's something else there. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the area. I do think that murals need to be separate from the sign ordinance, and that has to be, a definitive markers between those two. And in the case of Apex, about 11 o'clock, they still hadn't removed those signs either, because that's about the time I saw it. But there's in the regulations about Apex, it specifically says they can't paint signs on walls. If I remember, I forget what the proper term is, But there's, the Apex is a special case, and I have no problems keeping it as a special case that there cannot be murals in Apex. Okay, just to make sure that that's clear because of what one company is doing right now. I'd rather just say, okay, no, that's not going to happen there. And however we set up the rules to do that is fine, as far as my perspective. But I think overall it's important that we actually address this, because as the murals is becoming more and more common within the community, not having some becomes noticeable. And we have many different opportunities in our landscape to put some of this stuff up. So I would look forward to actually seeing something done.
All right, so I do not think there is discussion by anybody else, but I will offer it one last time before I close this up. I believe...
Madam Chair, I guess I'll just comment that, if I may, I concur with actually everyone that's discussing this. Again, I just would ask that we continue to work on it. I think we can, as Council Perlman has said, we can get to the goals that we're trying to get to and to the final product. I think, and with controls, I agree with Councilor President Ossing as well. With the controls are needed. You don't want going to the point where, especially the one at Apex, they could say this is a mural now, so we're going to keep it. We just want to make sure. Well, then again, that may happen. We have to look at that as one of the concerns of what could happen in other places without permission. Again, maybe if they had permission, they could have modified that so it wouldn't have been so offensive. So I see this helping to resolve what businesses are doing without permission, as well as to resolve the need to show Marlborough's rich history and allow artists to show off their art. So I think we can get there. I just hope, and I know you will, Madam Chair, continue to keep this an active urban affairs item so that we can get all of it on the table and find a way to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. It is my intention to treat this proposal just like I would a draft special permit proposal from a applicant. It is before Urban Affairs. At this point, we have a document provided by Council Perlman. I would ask the committee members to look at that, be able to bring back recommended amendments to it, bring back something new if you want to start over, and we can continue on. I would suggest that any councilors who are not members of Urban Affairs but have suggestions, please let me know, or please be prepared to offer those suggestions as we continue this. But for now, I think this is another one that will just remain in committee. I can set up a future meeting with the committee. This can just get kind of put in with other agenda items as we move forward. We have a few that are on the table, and a few that will be coming before us as soon as they have their public hearings. So we're going to be busy, but this is certainly one that is worthy of discussion. So with that, I think that wraps up.
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I was going to suggest someone make that motion. It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. It is about 9:28. I'm going to take a quick roll call vote to adjourn. Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landis votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your patience and for your comments this evening.